Footballer Marcus Rashford's free school meals initiative. Remember that? Well, it's been named the best campaign of the past decade. That's according to the results of a poll conducted by Pagefield. The Vote Leave campaign also placed in the top 10, alongside Sarah's Law, spearheaded by the News of the World. But what is the issue around these political campaigns? Have outside campaigns, in many ways, become more influential than elected politicians' own words? Well, I'm joined now by Oliver Foster, CEO of Pagefield, to dive into these results. And Oliver, thank you for joining us this morning. Were you surprised by some of the results on this list? Some of these campaigns that, of course, were sort of extra-parliamentary have really been more defining of the last decade than things that have gone on inside Parliament.
No, morning, Tom. Thanks for having me. No, not surprised really, because all of the top 10 were pretty high-profile public campaigns at the time over the last decade, and we were really determined when we selected the top 50 that was then down selected by a panel of judges to the top 10. We really wanted to put it out to a public vote, and as you said up front, the top three were quite close in the end. Vote Leave came in at about 15% of the vote. Sarah's Law at 18 and Marcus Rashford free school meals at 20%. So there was quite a closeness between the three. But what unites them all really is a authenticity and a mobilisation of support that all three campaigns, in very different ways, were very good at doing. All of them engaged politicians, and many of them had some high-profile politicians backing them. But I think your question is an interesting one, really, about the power of outside influence. And the beginning of your programme, you were talking about the NHS. And of course, one of the best groups of campaigners and arguably well-funded campaigners are the trade unions. And they have been for many years. And so campaigning is not just about big corporates with deep pockets. It's charities, it's trade unions, it's individuals. And our list of the top 10 that was voted on includes a mix of all of those.
Do you think that to some extent more political power is now sort of more dispersed than at any point before? It's interesting looking at the last sort of 2 months in British politics. One Prime Minister unable to get her agenda through Parliament and then being defenestrated as Prime Minister, perhaps due to outside pressure. This Prime Minister now feeling the heat on various levelling up legislation too. Perhaps sort of campaigning groups outside Parliament have more power than ever before.
Potentially, but I think what's more interesting is to look at politicians themselves. You still have some good, high-profile politicians who are very good campaigners. Robert Halfon is a very good example of someone who has spent many years campaigning on certain issues and becoming an expert. Your own Nigel Farage was instrumental in Vote Leave. There are a good pocket of politicians who are still good at that. Sadly, I think our political class is no longer as good as it used to be overall in campaigning, which is why outside bodies are having much more impact. But the key with all of this is that if you are authentic, if you mobilise, if you have data-driven campaigns, you're going to succeed because the public will be persuaded of your case. If you are just throwing money at it with no real sense of your direction or indeed your evidence, then you're not going to succeed.
Well, it's an absolutely fascinating list and well worth checking out for those who have not yet seen it in full. Rashford, Sarah's Law and Vote Leave coming in at the top there. Oliver Foster, CEO of Pagefield, thank you for talking us through campaigning as a modern political force.